Okay, sweet. This is class 6. My name is Guillermo. This is a intro to coding class, I believe, that I'm covering. So today we're going to be covering higher order functions. If you have any questions, feel free to chime in on audio or go ahead and throw it in the chat. So higher order functions, I'm going to try to break this down as simple as I possibly can, because I know when you're learning a lot of things very quickly, it can be very hard. I actually used to be a history teacher, so hopefully those skills come in handy right now. Maybe not, maybe yes. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and put this right here to the side. Okay, so higher order functions, functions that operate on other functions, either by taking them in as arguments or by returning them, are called higher order functions. Let's look at some examples. On the left, you see a function add that just takes in 2 parameters. If you're wondering what a parameter is, it's just this, right? It's just the name of a variable that points to a value or that contains a value. This is a simple add function, and this is a simple multiply function. Here we have a third function that's called function arithmetic, and it takes num1, num2, and calc. And then it declares a variable called let answer, and calc equals num1 and num2. Can anyone tell me what calc is in this scenario? You haven't seen it, but just judging by the syntax, calc has to be a what? Anyone?
A function?
Yes, it has to be a function, judging by it, because that's a function call right here. Sorry, I don't know how to draw on the screen. I'm new to recording on Zoom. Okay, so it has to be a function. So what's happening on the function arithmetic is you're passing in 3 parameters. You're passing in a num1, whatever that is, a num2, whatever that is, and calc. Num1 and num2 we can infer are integers, but calc, as we can see, is a function because this is a function call. Now, we don't know what calc does yet because we haven't seen that slide. But the short of it is a higher order function can take in parameters, and one of those parameters or all of those parameters can be functions. So you can pass in a function as a parameter. That right there is high order functions in a nutshell. Questions? I'm going to take dead silence as I understand completely. So this rabbit hole goes very, very deep, right? You can have a function that passes in 3 functions. And each of those functions, as their parameters, can pass in more functions. And then a couple of them can be integers or strings. And then a couple of those can be functions too. Does that make sense? Typically, you're not going to run into something that complicated because you want your functions to be modular and to really just do one thing, right? That's typically the software engineering definition of a good function, something that only does one thing. So we're going to move on to the next slide, and hopefully we'll find out what calc is. So here we go. We have the same 2 functions here, add and multiply, and then we're going to make a function call that's right in the middle called arithmetic, and we're going to pass in 3 things. We're going to pass in, right, the arguments 2, 3, and then something called add. And by looking at the top left-hand corner of our screen, we know that add is a function. So in the function arithmetic, we're going to pass in the number 2, we're going to pass in the number 3, and we're going to pass in the function add. So then when we look at our bottom left of the screen, arithmetic takes in num1, num2, and that calc is actually an add function. And then we're actually adding num1 and num2 in that bottom left arithmetic function. If I passed in, well, can anyone tell me what the answer is to this function right here, where I have my mouse? What is this going to return right here on this line? If you follow this logic right here, what is it? Someone said it.
5.
Yes, it's going to return 5 because the function arithmetic is taking in these 2 parameters and this function add and calculating them. So it's going to return 5. Can anyone tell me the difference between a parameter and an argument? Because this confused me when I started programming.
I can't remember which is which, but one is passed in and the other one's used by the function.
Yeah, that's pretty close.
Okay.
There's kind of a cleaner way to kind of look at it. If I point to this number 2, that's a what?
Parameter.
Close. It's an argument.
It's an
Right,
argument.
a parameter would be something like num2. It points to like an actual value of something, right? So when you make a function call, you're typically making a function call with arguments, right? Things like 2 or the string, high or something like that. And a parameter is just a variable name that points to something or holds something, however you want to think about it. Does that make sense? Don't
Yeah,
let that confuse you. They're almost synonyms, but not quite. And this, I guess the sooner you get that in your mind, the easier kind of deciphering this coding language really becomes, right? And I know it's overwhelming. So this is what we said, add number 1, number 2, and then the answer would be 5.
So I guess you could say an argument's always a parameter, but a parameter is not always an argument. Or is never an argument.
Yes, but that probably confuses more people than it helps. But
Yeah, I
yes, you
guess.
are right. Okay, so I'm going to read this slide real quick. Functions that operate on other functions either by taking, we already explained that. So it says why you want to reduce the complexity of these functions. You're going to see some of this, right? Some of these functions being passed in as parameters. They're often called callback functions, but we will get that in later lessons, I'm pretty sure. And that's pretty much high order functions in a nutshell. This is session 7. We're going to get into next class period. Disregard the dates. They haven't been updated. But can anyone give me just a short one-liner of what a higher order function is? What is a
function within a function?
Kind of a function that can pass in what?
Other functions.
Yes, that's it. Inside a function, you can pass in pretty much anything. And a function can pass in another function.
So I have a question on
Can you
this.
go back to 3?
Sure.
Go ahead, Hanley.
So what would this actually look like as you're writing it? So would this all be would it all have to be in the same class, or like, would it just be a bunch of functions listed, like, I guess from like top to bottom? Are these like global things, or are they? I guess they would be, right? Otherwise you'd have to write the entire
almost
function.
nothing is global, actually. You're going to come to learn that pretty much all global variables are bad because it pollutes the global scope, and it typically leads to a lot of bugs in your code. So almost nothing is actually global ever. So a lot of the times when you see this is you're going to break up like functions. Typically a good function really should just do one thing, and they should have really nothing should be hard coded, and one function shouldn't really know what another function does. And a lot of the times, actually almost exclusively, they're divided into different files. So you're actually going to be importing a function into another file and then using it as a parameter. So that's really what it looks like in practice. And actually in your full stack applications, you'll see a lot of that. You won't see them like crazily nested like 1,000 deep, because that's impractical and really hard to follow and like impossible to debug. But you're going to see a higher order function quite frequently, once or twice, because you're going to need to import it and then pass it in as a parameter for someone to use it, one of your other functions to use it. So they're quite common. Any other questions?
I have a question about this slide in general. It's just,
Yeah.
It's not doing it for me. I'm not fully understanding what is
it
going on.
didn't really do it for me either when I was looking at it earlier. I got you. Yeah. What can I help clear up?
I guess when you move from, so the top right bubble isn't even doing anything here. So just ignore the top right bubble. But the top left bubble.
But if add was multiplied, we would be using that.
Can I ask a question real quick, if you don't mind?
Yeah, if Steve, were you done with your question?
His question might help me.
Okay.
Go ahead and answer.
Give it a
his
shot,
question.
and then we'll come back to Steve. Sorry about that.
Yeah, sorry to interject
You're
there,
good.
Steve. So the bottom left bubble, I'm kind of confused because I think intuitively it should be let answer equal add because you're calling the add function from within arithmetic rather than creating calc, which would be num1 plus num2. Is that incorrect though? Am I
Okay, that is a really good question, bud. Here you're saying that this would make sense if this was add, right?
right? Yeah, to me
Absolutely.
it would.
Absolutely, except this parameter name is calc, so they need to match regardless if this is an add. If I made, okay, I'm going to try not to lose you here, right? Let's say calc right here, where I have my little cursor. Let's say calc right there was subtract. If you passed it in an add function, it didn't matter that you called it subtract, it would add it.
But it's really no different than num1 and the number 2, right? So, I mean, you're just using different names to represent the same thing.
Yes, correct. And that throws a lot of people off because it's not intuitive.
Yeah, it's not.
It's not intuitive at all. You just have to get used to it.
No, I understand completely about how they have to match. Like I see the parameter, the 3 parameters in the bottom left one now, but I don't see where arithmetic calls the add function in the top left bubble.
Top this one right here.
No, that's to me that's like bottom left. The top left would be the function add.
It's called in the
So
it's
I don't
called in
see-
the center bubble.
Yeah,
The
it's
center
called here.
bubble is what calls it.
Oh, I didn't know that was another function. I thought that was like an explanation of what was going on. Okay, I get it. Now.
It's not a function. It's just the call. What do you call it? The call term or something?
This is a function call. This is pretty much what's happening in the bottom left-hand function. They just kind of zoomed in and kind of try to make it explicit so it's easier to understand. I don't know if it's easier to understand that way. But again, I honestly don't know if I could create better slides than this. Higher order functions are just kind of, they're challenging to understand.
Guillermo, I think what is throwing people off and myself is that there's no function on your slide that is called calc.
Yeah.
Because this calc name, this is the function call and it's calling the function add. This parameter, I can call whatever I want. I could call it subtract and it would still add because the name doesn't matter there because I already made the function call here.
So if you were typing these in, you would have to do this top left bubble and the arithmetic with the 2, 3 add before you could put the function arithmetic. Otherwise it wouldn't.
Yes,
wouldn't-
it would have to be declared beforehand. Yes.
Okay. I just
Because then it would be trying to use a function that hasn't been declared and then throw
Yeah.
an error.
Okay.
At least
Can
in
you actually
JavaScript,
just,
it
like-
reads the file top down.
Can you actually just like open Replit or something and like,
Yeah.
I guess, type an example of it?
Sure, we can try that. Give me 1 second here. Oh no. I didn't accurately prepare for this. How well do you guys think this is about to go?
We'll wing it.
Very, very.
It
This is
can't
gonna
go
get-
worse than reading this slide. So
Okay, we're about to find out. All right, here we go. Give me 1 second, guys. So it's recording that screen. I need to make sure that I capture it here. Can you guys see this?
Yes.
Can you see my Replit?
yeah.
Yeah.
All right, guys. So I was trying not to code something on the fly that I hadn't practiced. All right. Because coding in front of people is challenging, but we're going to give it the old college try.
Well,
All
can
right.
you just put those 3 functions in there? And then call.
Sure.
Yeah, we do it all the time. It'll be fine.
Okay. Give me 1 second. Let's see this. Okay, I'm moving everything around, guys. So you're gonna have to bear with me here.
So this kind of brings me to a question that I've had. Do you recommend having 2 screens while taking the actual class?
Yes,
I see you're probably
absolutely.
using one
Two
screen right now.
Two screens are I'm actually using 3. Yeah, indispensable. 2. 3 is probably overkill. I think law of diminishing returns, right? But 2 I think is indispensable. Okay, so sweet. Let's try it. We're gonna go function. Oh, function add num1 and num2. Cool. Let answer equal num1 plus num2. Yes. Return answer. Function. And this is function arithmetic num1, num2, calc. Let answer equal calc num1, num2. Return answer. Return answer 2. Let's make this answer 1. Answer 1. Okay. And you want to call arithmetic?
I think you have to, your second function, the declaration, the variable declaration has to be answered to.
Yeah, you're right. Sorry about that. Boom. See, this is why you don't code live. All right. So, and our arithmetic function call is what? 2, 3, and add, right?
Yes.
Sweet. Boom. Okay. So if I do this, what's going to print to the console?
Should be 5.
5. Let's try it. Sweet. 5.
It worked.
What if I call this subtract? What is this going to do?
Nothing. It'll throw an error.
It'll add. It'll do the same thing that's already been declared.
You still add
What's going to be in the console right here?
5,
I don't know why I have my hands up like a fool. Anyway, what were you guys saying?
5.
5? Let's see.
It's gonna be an error.
Subtract is not defined.
Yeah.
So function at the top,
There's an
the
S in
first
there.
function
Yeah.
needs to say subtract.
No, it's not defined because
No, he
you made a
spelled
typo.
you spelled subtract wrong.
Yeah, you made
Subtract.
Oh, sorry, guys. Oops. Good catch, guys. All right. Clear the console. What's going to be in the console if I spell it correctly?
5.
Let's see. Doesn't matter, subtract, right? Because the function call on line 15 is add. I'm passing the function add into arithmetic. So that subtract, that's just a parameter name. Doesn't really have, I could call it kangaroo. We're gonna add it.
Oh, yeah. I get it.
Thank you for you know, I didn't even think of like setting this up, setting this example on a replit. This is much better. Nice job, guys. Way to be good students. I thought, yeah, we'll do some slides. They get it. No, it's not like that at all.
So this is primarily just like one function relying on another function. Like this function it doesn't do anything unless the first function is declared.
Exactly. Yes. And sometimes you'll have like kind of bigger functions that have steps in them, and you really need to get one value before the rest of the function can finish. So in those cases, it just makes sense to break it up and have, because ideally what I said earlier stands true. You want every function just to do one thing. So ideally, if you have like kind of a big complicated function, or you're trying to do something somewhat complicated, you would break it up into smaller functions and then just have one function that puts all the pieces together.
Got it. So if you put subtract when you call the function, if you change add and put subtract, then it's not gonna, it won't do it then. So, yeah.
This will throw an error. Why?
Yeah. Okay. I get it. I get it.
Because subtract isn't a function.
Yeah,
Yeah.
subtract isn't a function,
All right.
but I'll run it for posterity's sake. Actually, I don't even know if I use that word properly. Sound good? And by the same token on line 15, if I created a function called multiply, I could multiply the numbers. And I could leave the subtract there on line 9 and 8. It wouldn't matter.
So the operator in line 2 is the primary thing, making the numbers do the numbers.
Yes, if that's only if that's the function that I'm invoking on line 15 with the function call. This right here is known as a function call. Because I am calling arithmetic and I am go ahead and passing in some arguments. And my arguments are 2, 3, and the function add. My function arithmetic doesn't actually know what add is until it calls add, and add ends up being a function, but it could be a string for all it knows. It doesn't know.
Where you have it say answer 1 and then the other one say answer 2, could they both just say answer? It wouldn't like mess anything up? They're separate?
I think it wouldn't mess anything up though, but we can try it. This is kind of a on the fly example. It shouldn't throw an error, but let's try. I thought it might, that's why I renamed them, but no, it's fine.
Okay, thank you.
Can you only like
So
with a
in the-
function call, can you only call one function? Like you can't do like add comma and then another function. You would have to basically like have a function inside of add if you wanted to call, like you were talking about the, the rabbit hole. Like if you
Yeah.
really wanted to go down there, you couldn't like have another function up on, line 5 that was a subtract function. You couldn't, if you left it the way you have it right now, it wouldn't actually do both of those things. You can
If
only call
if
one.
I did this,
Right. And then if you had another function that was up there that was called subtract, like that wouldn't do anything, right?
let me see if I can get your example here. So function subtract, and it's going to take num1. Let me type it out just to make sure that I understand exactly what you're asking me. Let answer equals num1 plus num2.
If you do,
Return.
yeah, just do num1 minus num or whatever. I mean, whatever you want the function to do, but
Oh yeah, good call. Yeah, let's do that. Let's do a subtract and let's just flip these around. That way, it doesn't matter if we're adding subtracted, we get a positive number. Not that it matters because it doesn't. Okay, so what you want me to do is, if this function call is made with 3, 2, add and subtract, is this going to do anything?
yeah, that's basically what I'm like. I guess it's a syntax question. Like, can you actually put another thing after, like another function after add, or does it only let you in JavaScript, I guess, only let you put that one add?
You have to match your function. So if the function takes in 3 parameters, you have to pass in 3, and here you're passing in 4. I would have to pass in 4 here for it to be a valid function call.
Okay, so I mean, if you pass in a 4th one,
If I do this,
yeah, can you pretty much do this like infinitely?
yeah, like what I have here, and I could do subtract here, and then I can do, answer plus add num1, num2, like something crazy like that. Yeah, that would work. I could also even pass in subtract or add and then not use it. I mean, that seems like a wasted code. You would never do that, but you could, and it wouldn't throw an error.
Can you click run?
On this one? On this
Yeah.
one? Sure. It subtracted 3 from 2. And notice that we passed in add, but we didn't use it. Didn't throw an error. As long as we have the same number of parameters on the function call, we're fine. You don't even have to use it. But again, no one would do this because if you're not using one of the parameters, why pass it in? Just delete it. questions?
I just want to make sure I understand. So you're saying on line 19, if you had a left out subtract, but in line 12, you had subtract, you're saying it would give you an error when you ran it.
Just tell me what to do and then I'll go ahead and we can try it.
Oh, well, you might have just done it, but like, so if you took out subtract on line 19
Uh-huh.
and then ran it, you're going to get an error because you have it in 12.
Yeah, this shouldn't run
Okay.
because you're calling it with 3 parameters and the function call, this function expects 4. It doesn't know what to do with that. It would be the same thing if you had like 5 parameters, you're calling it with 5 parameters, but your function only takes 3. Oh, it's going to throw an error. It doesn't know how to make sense of that. Any more questions, guys? This is not an easy concept, by the way. It took me literally months to figure this out. This is not an easy concept. You're just starting to scratch the surface here.
I have a question.
Yes, sir.
I'm probably behind, but on line 19, when you have the subtract added in there, and then the answer was 1, to me, it seemed like it skipped over add. What happened there? Why did it skip over add?
I didn't use it. Look at the function starting on line 12. I'm not using add for anything. So does it, you passed it in, but it literally just disappears into fairy dust because it's not being utilized. I mean, the function had access to it, but we're not doing anything to it. So nothing happened.
Gotcha. Okay, thank you.
Mm-hmm. But right here, if you subtract here, you're going to get 1. You're going to get 1. And if you did like let sum equal, answer, and then you could do something real crazy like adding num1, num2. That's going to give you what?
6.
It's going to give you 6. No, why didn't it give me? I don't think it's doing this function call properly. Oh, no. No, it's doing it right. I'm just not calling sum. This should give you 6. Sorry about that.
There we go.
There you go. Sorry about that, guys. Trying to be a good teacher, but not so good with the Zoom and the Replit.
I'm sorry, I have another question.
No,
So how
don't
come,
apologize. That's why we're here.
like, all the stuff that's in like lines 1 through 4, and then obviously it's using lines 6 through 9. So how come it's not automatically using that line 1 through 4? Because we didn't use it in like lines 12 and 13 or 13. Like before the example that you just did where you did sum, like where it just said answer.
So let's say I comment this out. Okay. And what specifically is your question? Like if I comment this out and I just return answer, like it had access to add, but since I didn't use it, it didn't act on it. It didn't use it for anything.
Because it's just going on what that function's answer is.
Yep.
Not in line 2. Okay.
Yeah. If a function, that's actually a really good point. If a function has access to extra parameters that it doesn't use, it will not throw an error. However, if a function needs parameters and it's not provided with enough, it will throw an error because it doesn't know what to do. It's okay if it has extra. It's never okay if it doesn't have enough. But again, the extra thing would never really happen because if you're passing in extra things to a function, you would never do that because you just delete them. If a function doesn't need it, then get rid of it. It's just extra code that you're typing.
So if we had have let line 3 still, or like line 2 equal let answer 1, and then kept line 7 be let answer 2, and then made line 13 let answer 3, and then we still left in the add parameter in line 12, would that have called back the add function?
No, it would have been the same thing. It would have been the same answer that we got. The name of the variables that they're returning is kind of irrelevant. That's why it's not throwing an error that they're both answered. That kind of weirds me out. That's why I listed it originally as like answer 1, answer 2, answer 3, so we can differentiate between them. But it doesn't really matter what you call something. I mean, it matters for the sake of programming and being a good software engineer, but the variable names don't really matter that much. It doesn't affect what the functions do, as long as they match. And you're not violating some kind of like language, like you're starting a variable name with a number or something, and like Python is not going to let you do that. All right, guys, this was going to happen. Go ahead, take a 10-minute break. We'll come back. I know this was kind of mind melting, and then we'll get started on some challenges. But if in this 10 minutes you have an extra question about this, I'll leave this up, okay? So we will be back at 7:14.
I've already talked to my manager, and I said, basically, if I do this program, can I start doing the IT side of project work in addition to project management? But I don't know. We'll see how it all works out.
Yeah, good. I mean, that'd be good. I kind of am in a similar situation. I'm a IT technician now, but we've got a senior developer and then an intern, but the intern's leaving shortly. So, you know, if I can kind of do this thing and then move into that junior developer role at the company, that'd be good for me, I feel.
James, do you think that you will take a pay cut or no?
I'm hoping I would get a pay raise. You know, I'll be there in a year coming up, and so I'm going to try and work in like, hey, you know, moving into this role as well as my performance from the last year. So yeah, I'm hoping not to get a pay cut.
All right, guys, we're going to continue with the class. Hopefully I didn't lose any of you guys. If you had any more questions, we can take, you know, 1 or 2 more questions if you have some. If not, we can go ahead and move on to the coding challenges. Anything about higher order functions here that we can explain a little bit further? Nothing? Okay.
In line 12,
Yes.
12, the last element, subtract, really doesn't matter what you write in there, right? It's just to keep track of things, or so add and subtract. If you had, okay, perfect.
I don't know how to spell giraffe, honestly.
Looks good to me.
All right. We are going to subtract donkey. This is the most eclectic YouTube video ever. With monkey. Then we're going to do the same thing down here. Donkey and monkey. And instead of subtract, we're going to do subtract is what? Elephant? Elephant. I hope this is helping more than it's confusing, but if it's confusing, I apologize. Giraffe. I've never really done it this way. Should my answer change here? Class.
As long as we got everything matched, I don't think so.
As long as we got, great answer. As long as we got everything matched, the answer should still be 6 when I run it. Let's see if we screwed something up. We did not screw something up. It's still 6. The
Right.
function call passes in the right arguments, right? The right high order functions. So it doesn't really matter what happens as long as we matchy. Did that help? I hope. Lie to me.
Yep.
It did.
Excellent, guys. All right, so we're going to actually just do one coding challenge together, just real quick, just to get warmed up. And then I'm going to break you guys into groups and give you your own coding challenge, and then we'll come back and we'll kind of work it together. Okay, so I want everyone, if you're able to, grab your favorite code editor, text editor, and we're going to give this challenge. I'm sure you've seen it from all my flipping my screens around. We're going to give this very short challenge a try. Go ahead and I want everyone to kind of take a minute or two and kind of figure out how you would approach this problem. The instructions are on your right. And really the only thing we want to do is we want to iterate through the input array and just find the max value and return it. That's it. Anybody want to shout out an idea that they have off the top of their head of a possible way to solve this? And it's okay if you're still working through it. Well, we might come up with, more than one solution for this.
You need a for loop.
Yeah, let's do it for loop style. All right. Oh, now everyone can see how slow I type. Oh no, this guy has a job. I know that's what you're thinking. This guy is employed as a software engineer and he can't type. That's embarrassing. Okay, I got my for loop. Now what? This is one way, definitely one way to do it. I already typed out my for loop, so we were doing it this way. What should I do next?
We got to find out if, or which one's the highest, right?
Okay, we need to find the highest. If what? Student scores I, that's the iteration element we're on. If that's what? Bigger than what?
The next one, so.
Do we need to do the next one? You can do it that way, but that's a little bit harder. Why not? What can I declare this as?
100.
But we don't want to hard code anything. This actually, I'm really glad you brought that up. Was that you, Jen? This is
No.
really good. So one of the golden rules, if not the golden rule in software engineering, you never want to hard code anything, right? So if I let max num equal 100 right there, I would be what's known as hard coding it. And you never want to hard code something because when you hard code something in programming, things break and that's bad. So we
You just want
don't
an
want
empty box.
max num.
Yeah.
Not quite. We want to set it to
Curly
something.
bracket?
Not quite. We want to set it to a number, but we don't know what number that's going to be.
0,
I didn't hear that.
0.
Let's try 0. Why not? So we're going to check if the iteration that we're on, student scores I, if that number is bigger than max num, which I set it to 0. Let's try that. Max num. Okay. If it is, what do I want to do?
Let max num equal student score I.
Good. Student scores I. Yes, if my student scores I, that element is bigger than my max num, I want to reassign it, which is what's happening. Notice no let, no const in front of line 5. I'm just reassigning an already declared variable. I'm going to declare it. What's the last thing that I need to do?
Oh, wait, the last thing.
Return,
Need to
return.
return max num.
Return max num. Is this going to yield my max num 92 and 97 in both my test cases?
I don't think so.
Let's try it. Boom. It does yield both
What the heck?
of my high numbers. Can anyone tell me why? Does work.
Because it's iterating through the loop, and if like
Yeah.
once, so for the first one, it pumps in 89 there. 89 becomes max num, and then it looks at 76 and it's not greater. It looks at 56, not greater, and then it looks at 92 and it says it's greater. So now your max num is 92.
Excellent. So that does work for these two test cases. What if I did this? What's my
Yeah.
my max num in line 14 in this test case? What's my max num here?
67.
Be very specific.
Negative
Negative
67.
Negative
67, yeah.
67. I had an old manager that said, this isn't politics. This is engineering. Be incredibly specific and detailed when you describe something. Because you're going to realize, if you haven't realized already, you spent 3 hours debugging a problem and you realize you misspelled something, or you forgot to carry a negative, or you forgot a plus, right? That's never happened to anybody? Just me? No? Nah, you guys lying. I know this happened to you guys. Okay,
Yeah.
let's run it. Oh, it's returning 0. It's not working for my last test case. Why not?
Because max num is 0, which is higher than negative 67.
Yeah, 0 is higher than all my elements in my array because they're all less than 0. So what can I set max num to handle all my test cases, positive and negative?
Math.abs.
Not
Can
quite.
you pull an absolute value?
Not quite. That's not the prototypical
just-
way to do this.
Why don't we just set it to the first integer in the array?
Is that going to work? That works.
Yeah.
It does.
If you set it equal to the first element, then you have a reference point, right? And then you compare all the rest. I actually have an extra iteration in there. Can anyone find it and remove it for me?
It's under the, yeah, it's line 5. Yeah.
No, not quite. I have an extra
Let
iteration.
I equals 0.
It's not 0, it's what?
Is a mass num.
No, not quite. You're very close
1.
though. It's
It's
1.
1.
Why is it 1?
Okay.
Because you already have declared what, like you're
Yeah.
already looking at the first element.
Yes,
The 0th element. Yeah.
yes. If that was 0, what would happen on line 4 is, hey, compare the first element to the first element. And you don't need to do that because you already accounted for the first element by setting it to the max temporarily. And actually, this would probably be more like temp max, right? Because it changes. I could have done a better job declaring that, but we'll roll with it for now. So this is definitely one way to do it. Anybody have another way? Anybody do it any other way? So what I'm trying to work with this coding challenge is to kind of expose you. And I'm sure you guys already know there's 1,000 ways to do pretty much every coding challenge, it seems like. And this is a very simple one. A loop will work. It's not fancy, but it works. Can anyone think of another way? And I just want to expose you to different ways of doing things. That's why we're going to spend a little bit more time on this very a relatively manageable and tractable problem. Everyone did it with a loop. I find it hard to believe. Because if you get 10 software engineers, you're going to get 10 very different solutions a lot of the time.
Well, originally I thought of doing an if else, like a longer way of doing with more lines of code than a for loop.
Okay. Yeah, that would have been a hard way to do it. And I would have to look at it, but it would be very tedious because you don't know how many elements you're going to get. It could be an array with 3 elements. It could be an array with 1,000,000 elements. I don't know. Any other ideas? Is anyone familiar with Mathmax? Put this in your, okay, so there's a tool that I use. I actually, when I answered the question at the beginning of the class, what did I do? I told you I did a lot of code words to get better. I omitted one really important thing. There is a free note card system called Anki on the internet. The desktop version is free. I think you have to pay for like maybe the phone version, but the desktop version for sure it's free. What is it? Nothing fancy. It's note cards. It's digital note cards. Why am I explaining it to you if I can just show you? I'll pull up my Anki right here. Teaching moment. Here we go. So what I did was, can you guys see? Oh, give me 1 second. Sorry about that.
Yeah.
I should be able to bring it over, and I don't know, my settings are weird. You guys see this?
Yeah. Now we see it.
Okay, so I gave you a half answer earlier. Yes, I did. That's primarily the thing that I did. But the second thing that I would argue was just as important is when I was, let's say, learning JavaScript or Python, if I didn't know something, I would write it down. And it's literally a note card system. The note cards that you did in 5th grade for your like multiplication tables, this is what this is, except it's a little bit fancier because it comes with a built-in algorithm. So this is asking about a specific linked list. When, let's say I answered it right away and it wasn't hard for me at all. Here I can decide, hey, was this easy for me? Because if it's easy for me, it's going to go ahead and show me that note card in 4 days, right? If I'm good on it, you can show it to me in 1 day. If it was hard, it's going to show it to me again in 10 minutes if I keep playing with this Anki. So it's got a built-in algorithm that will space out your note cards so you don't forget them, and it kind of cuts into that learning curve. So I did 2 things. I did a bunch of code wars, made sure that my JavaScript and my Python was strong. And whenever I didn't know a method or a property, or I found something really cool on code wars, a really cool way to solve a problem, I would literally type it out, and then on the back, I would write the answer. And then I would do Anki every day. Spaced repetition. That's it. Free program. Good. Oh, and as you can tell, I did an Anki card for literally everything. Interview questions, Postgres, JavaScript, Python, like everything that I was going to learn, I made a deck for it. Even GitHub, because I forget some of my commands sometimes, Django. Yeah, and there's some of the stuff that I was doing for work. But yeah, just a bunch of everything I wanted to learn, I just made a deck for it. And if I didn't know it, I put it in there, did Anki every day. Any questions about Anki? You don't care about Anki? I just wanted to show you too, because I think it's helpful.
Yeah, that's pretty cool. Never heard of it. That's awesome.
Very helpful. Where were we? Boom. Give me 1 second. I like to see you guys' faces when I'm like teaching or attempting to teach. You see how I corrected myself there? Okay, can anyone think of a different way to do it? Huh?
You are talking about Mathmax?
Yes, Mathmax. And I am having a situation with my Zoom right now. Give me 1 second, guys. I'm sorry about this. Okay, boom. Yes, I'm going to show you Mathmax. And this is something that the first time I came across it, I actually put it in my Anki because I thought it was really cool. Okay, so if I return Mathmax and I give it number 1 and 3, it's going to return what, you think?
3.
It's going to return 3. Why?
Because it's the higher of the 2. I think we've used math.4 before. I kind of remember how it works. But
Okay, cool. I have 3 console log statements, line 15 to 17. That's why I printed 3 times. But that's exactly what math does, right? You can pass in some numbers and it will return the biggest number. There's also math min. So if you needed to find the min, you could do that. So this is something that would be in my Anki because it's kind of a shortcut. Could you do it with a loop? Absolutely. Could you do it with Mathmax if you knew it? Absolutely. And I'm going to show you something that's going to give us the max. And I'll go ahead and teach it here right after I do it. This is known as a spread operator, and it does exactly what you think it's going to do. It's actually going to spread out my array in numbers, so I don't have to type them out. So it's 3 dots. It's called the spread operator. Student scores, and that's going to spread my array inside my Mathmax function and just give me the biggest number. There you go. And the spread operator is seems like very magical at first, but I'll go ahead and break it down for you to kind of show you what it does. Let's say I had an array and I had 1, 2, 3. And I was like, man, I want to combine with this array with whatever's being inputted or with another array. I can say sweet, spread operator, 3 dots, and I can do student scores. If I comment out, oh, sorry. Like, So I don't want to make an excuse, but I actually work on a Windows, but I prefer a Mac, and I'm on my Mac right now. It's just context switching between my Windows when I'm at work and then my Mac. It's kind of hard. So that's why I'm forgetting some of my shortcuts because I'm trying to do Windows commands. Okay, anyway, so can anyone tell me what the console is going to print here just with this function call here on line 15?
Is it going to return
I'm assuming
1,
1,
2,
2,
3 and the array? Or is it just going to put all the numbers in one single array?
The second one that you said, that's what spread
Okay.
operators does. It puts
Okay.
an array inside of another one very cleanly. So right here, I am going to read 1, 2, 3, 89, 76, 56, 92, 66. Does that make sense?
And you could add like math.max to the front of that. And so you could use that right there. And use your math operator and it'll return the max.
Yes. And I'll go ahead and throw
Okay.
that right after I run this.
Oh, sorry. Okay.
No, you're good. Boom. It returned exactly what we said it was going to. The 1, 2, 3, because I added it, and now I want you to spread the rest of the array and make one array. 1, 2, 3, and then the rest of the array, regardless of what it is. Now, if I wanted to just do, I could get fancy and I could do Mathmax, and I could pass in 1,000. 1,000, 2, 3, and then all the numbers from my input array. What's this going to return?
1,000.
1,000. That's the biggest number in there. Doesn't matter what I spread out there. So if you didn't know Mathmax, now you know it. If you didn't know the spread operator, now you know it. So sometimes you'll get coding challenges about like combining arrays. Just remember you can grab one array and then spread the other one into it.
So you change from the square brackets to just the parentheses there.
Yes, because Mathmax just takes the numbers like individually. They don't have to be in an array.
So if you took the Mathmax out and you try to use that spread operator, it's not going to return an array, right? Because you have the parentheses. So like, it's
Say that one more time. I'm sorry.
so if you take the math.max out,
Okay,
and
if
then
I
just
delete,
return, like it's not going to give you an array, right? Because those are
no,
just
because I would
parentheses,
have
like,
to put the
yeah,
array brackets
yeah.
in there, or create an array a different way. But that would. The Mathmax, you don't need the brackets for Mathmax. But if you know Mathmax, you know that that's how it takes it in. Just simple like syntax things, I guess. That with time you see it so often, then it becomes second nature.
Can you call a spread operator? Can you put the spread operator in like console log?
Can you put the spread operator in a console log?
Would there be a reason you would want to?
Not really.
Isn't the
Fair
split
enough.
operator just like join?
No, join is when you're joining an array, like into a string, if that's the join you're talking about. It's like, I guess it's the array version of join. You could see it like that. But there's also concat, and that's really concat. And that's really more when you want to, that also joins two arrays, but that's just a different method to do it. That to me feels more like it would be like a join.
I
But
see.
you can look into it. I'm not going to discuss that one because I think 3 ways to solve this is more than enough. Wait, did I only give 2? I only gave 2, right? I'm going to answer my own question. I think I only gave 2. I gave Mathmax and the loop. Anyone know any other way? Okay, there's this thing in JavaScript. Probably my favorite thing about the JavaScript language are high order functions that are built into JavaScript. Things like reduce, things like a map, things like filter. Are any of you guys familiar with any of those?
Yes, Charles told us that we have to know those no matter what. They're the things we'll use the most.
Yes, because they're incredibly powerful. And Python has them a little bit, but you have to import libraries, which is a super pain. This is my favorite thing about JavaScript because you can solve a lot of coding challenges with all those high order functions. Not only that, they come incredibly useful when you're destructuring and you're working with React, but also like as a software engineer, I use those all the time. Like the spread operator, use it all the time. I filter through arrays all the time, right? And I use them all the time. So get really comfortable with them. You can get really fancy. This is a high order one called reduce that you can use it to. This is how I remember reduce. If you have an array, it reduces it to one element. So that's what reduce does. And this is kind of an unorthodox way to use reduce, but high order functions will take So reduce is the high order function that's built into JavaScript, and then it takes an initial value and an accumulator. Most of the time you would just see it as A and B, but you could see it as, you know, original value accumulator instead of A and B. And then you can do something real fancy where if A is bigger than B, and this is known as a ternary operator, A, if not B. If you guys are taking notes, feel free to write down ternary operator is when you're comparing just like two things. It's just a shorthand version to do an if else statement. Like when you go to like Lead Code or Code Wars or something, and you see people one line things, a lot of the times they'll use high order functions and then ternaries just to keep everything in one line. And people think that they know how to program, which may or may not be true. So this should return the hardest one in reduce is not a function. It's because I put high score and that's not what it is. It's student scores, reduce, boom. This is one of the higher order functions that Charles says you need to know. This is just a fancy way of reducing it down to whatever the highest one is. So reduce, higher order function. This right here is known as a ternary operator. I believe that's how you pronounce it. And it's just a fancy if else statement. I don't want to go too much into it, but you can write it down and look into it later. Or at the end of class, you can ask me about it. Yes, Gent, that is correct. I hope I pronounced it right. If not, it's going to be on YouTube that I don't know how to pronounce ternary operator. Good. These are just 3 ways to solve this challenge. There's probably half a dozen other ones, but we don't have time for that. So what's going to happen right now is actually I'm going to pause the recording and I'm going to break you up into groups and I'm going to give you your challenge. Nailed it. Had one job and I nailed it, guys. I hope you guys are proud of me. Where am I at?
Good job.
Excellent. Thank you. Thank you. All right, how we do? How do we fare on this challenge?
Oh,
Good
man.
teamwork.
Good teamwork. That's what I like to
Yeah.
hear. Anyone else?
It's a little humbling.
Little
Time
humbling.
was so short.
The hints on the bottom were helpful.
Good. Sweet. All right. So this coding challenge, see if we can work through it together. I really don't like what this is at. I'm trying to move it. Okay. Okay, that's better, I guess. All righty, sweet. We're gonna work through this together. Anybody got an idea? Want to throw it out there, how they solved it? So it's asking, write a function that takes in a number that represents the social security number and return the last 4. All right. We all have military experience or are married to someone that has military experience. So this should be pretty straightforward. What do we got?
So we first thing we did was declared a variable inside the function and turn that into a string. And then we took that string
How'd you
and
convert
did
it into a
array.
string?
What's that?
How'd you convert it to a string?
So we did, our variable was social array, and then we did equals socsec dot to capital S and string open and close parentheses.
Wait, sorry. Soak, sec, what? Sorry, give me that second part again.
Dot to string with open and close parentheses.
Dot to string.
Yep. And then the next line would be, we declared another variable, let social string equal array dot from.
Array dot from.
Yes, and then open parentheses social array.
Social array.
Which was the first variable we declared.
Mm-hmm.
And then we got to, we're going to do a for loop. And we did let I equal social string dot length. And then the breakout room ended. So that's kind of where we got. But
you were doing this right here?
Yeah. So Yazidi was, I think we were kind of on the right track. He was spearheading this thing a bit. But so the idea was that we were going to try and isolate the last 4 of the string that we created.
Okay. Okay, that's definitely one way to do it. If I return social string right here for the first test case, what am I going to return?
An array of an array with which contain each numbers of
Okay.
the success.
Let's see. Array is not defined. What did I mess
Guillermo,
up?
do you mind sharing the replit you're working on so we could see that?
Wait, I'm not sharing it? I thought I was.
We just see you.
Oops.
At least it's for me.
I am so sorry. Oh, and it's recording too. I knew I was gonna, so I didn't nail it then. Give me 1 second, guys. Let's see if I can figure this out. Thank you for, I thought I was sharing it the whole time, honestly. Oops. Share screen. And I am going to share, screen 3, share. Okay. Is this good? Sorry.
Yes, thank you.
I'm so sorry about that. Thank you for telling me. I literally thought I was sharing it. Okay. Okay. So what did I mess up here? It's returning an error.
Array should be in capital letter, the A.
Ah, gotcha. Boom. All right. Let's try it again. Sweet. Is returning. Yeah, it's returning an array with the string numbers as elements. Cool. Now what? Looping it would be the hard way to do this.
Now you want to slice it.
You want to slice it? I can slice this array. How do I get the last 4?
You got to count for, you got to do a dot slice. So you would, I guess if we're going to continue with this one, yeah. So social string dot slice, and then you're on the 5th element of the array.
Uh-huh.
And that's it. And that's, well, that's going to give you the last 4, but it's still going to be an array.
Okay. Let's see. So this is going to be the last 4 elements in the array. That's what you're saying.
Yes.
Let's give it a shot. Is that the last 4?
Yeah.
Boom. That's the last 4. What can we do to kind of bring this one home?
Join it.
Join it. Let's do it. Join it on a character, which is just that, I believe. Boom. Do we got it?
We did.
Excellent. That's one way to do it. Anybody have another way to do it? That's teamwork right there. I'm hearing crickets. Okay.
JavaScript's anonymous functions confuse me because it seems like you're declaring a variable when you say let last 4, but you're really creating a function.
Oh, yeah. I'm glad you brought that up. Who was that? Thank you for whoever that was. I'm sorry. I didn't catch your name.
No problem. Gent.
Jen, thank you. This is a different way you'll see functions written. You'll see functions written that way, or you'll see functions written, big monkey, right? And then you'll see them one other way that I kind of don't want to get into right now. But yes, JavaScript has a couple different ways that you can write your functions. This is known as an arrow function. And you'll see them a lot when you get to React. It's just different syntax, but it does the same thing. And there's like one minor thing about scoping when it comes to arrow functions, but you don't need to know that right now. So this definitely solves the problem. ToString. Can anyone tell me another way to string something that I think is a little easier than ToString? This is the way that everyone strings together numbers. There's no other way. No one knows any other way. Okay, all right. So if I was to convert a string into an integer, how would I do it? If I was to, convert the number 5 to the string 5, how would I do it? The string 5 to the number 5. What's the opposite of toString?
Two int.
Parse int.
It's parse int, and I hate that. It's like parse int and toString. This is converting a number to a string, and parse int is what, string to number? Am I right? Those are two ways. They're both valid. I hate both of them because they're not intuitive. I'm going to teach you a separate way. String, whatever you want in string, converts it to a string, and then tell me what the number one is. That's how you convert a number to a string. How do you convert a string to a number?
Just switch it. No. Yeah,
More intuitive, right?
absolutely. Yeah.
More intuitive. So if you learn parse int, if you learn toString, you already know them, sweet. If you're still struggling with them, I suggest line 5 and line 6. They're way easier to remember because they're literally opposites. And you don't have to remember like parse int and like toString. They're not very similar, but line 5 and 6, newer syntax, much cleaner, easier to remember. That being said, let's try to one line this one, and then we can take a break and then move on to another group coding challenge. This one right here, you could string all of it, right? Because that's just one big number. You string it, then you slice it, but I don't want to start anywhere, and I can just start from the back. Cleaner. I don't know how many numbers. Well, it's associated number, so it's going to have what, 9? But let's say I didn't know how many numbers it was, and I just wanted to grab the last 4 regardless of how many numbers it had. As long as it had at least 4, you can start from the back with a negative and grab them from the back. See?
See, that's what I was trying to do. I didn't put the string in front of it. I got it. Excellent.
You cannot slice an integer, but that's a very common mistake. Remember that slice is a string method. It works on strings. You'll have array methods. It only works on arrays. You have object methods. It only works on objects. Questions about this challenge?
So, yeah, I thought when you did console dot, so why when we're calling this function, is it an integer instead of a string? The social security number, that the number that's being passed in is an integer, you said? Not a
Yeah, this
string?
is an integer. This is an integer. That's why it's in that color.
Oh yeah, because it doesn't
Yeah.
have the single. Yeah, got it.
Single or double little quotation marks.
Yeah, all right.
So that's a number. So in order to slice it, yeah. And if you wanted, like, let's say this is I think the challenge asked to return it as a string, right? The last 4 is a string. Yeah, as a string. But if it asked you, hey, give me the last 4 numbers, how do you alter this function to give you the last 4, but in digits and integers and not as a string? What would you do? So you have the string 0156 8357 0769. That's a string. If I want to convert that to a number, what would I do?
Are you saying on one line? How would you do that in one line?
Yeah, you
Or-
can do it online too. I mean, it looks kind of messy, but you can do
Can you
it.
put parse int in front of it, in front of the?
No.
Come
You
on.
wrap it in
Would you-
number.
Yeah,
But yeah, parse it would work, dude.
Okay.
Color change means it's an integer, and it gets rid of the leading 0, by the way,
Yeah, cool.
because it's an integer.
I have a question about what you said earlier. You said that an array method will not work on string and will not work on numbers, right?
Yes.
But the slides were introduced to us in your slide that you guys be using called Platoon as an array method, but
Oh,
you use it on a string now.
Oh, you can use it on an array too.
Okay.
Yeah. Sorry. Some of them you can act on strings and arrays. I was getting a little confused with other languages, but yes, slice you can use on strings in JavaScript and arrays. I am sorry.
Too easy.
So, but isn't it a problem that it drops the zero, the first zero?
Not if it's an integer, but if you absolutely needed it, you could put it back in there. You could try to figure out to put it back in there. If it's an integer, you don't need it. Actually, it wouldn't make sense with it there, right? Unless you're.
I think you just mean from a math perspective.
Yeah, that's the perspective I was thinking.
Like if you were going to do something else with that number that you just sliced off, like you don't need the leading zero.
Yeah.
I get it. Okay, I just meant for like this challenge. My bad.
For sure. No. This is I was just showing you. I was just reinforcing the number thing, and someone still gave me parsint. That's fine. Stick to parsint. Stick to whatever you know. Questions? All right, guys, this is what's going to happen. We are going to take a 6-minute break and we're going to come back. Okay. Take 6 minutes and then we'll finish strong. Okay. Or crawl to the finish line. They're both good. And I will try not to mess up the recording this time. Pause. All right, guys, looks like most of us are back. So we're going to do a very short coding challenge together, and then I'm going to put you back in breakout rooms for the next challenge. So the challenge that we're all going to work on just together as a class is called range. And it's pretty straightforward. It's right here on your right. We're going to write a method that takes in a minimum and a maximum integer, and then we're going to return an array of all the integers between those two numbers. So between the min and the max. Notice how they're both exclusive. They don't include the min and they don't include the max. So just the numbers in the middle, kind of like a sandwich. So everyone take a minute, digest this coding challenge, start kind of processing how you might solve this. I am sharing my replit. Yes, I think I am. All right, excellent. And if anybody is so inclined to just tell me how you might solve this, we can get started.
A for statement.
A loop? Is that what you mean?
Yeah, sorry.
Excellent. Let's do a loop. Where do we want to start?
Min plus 1.
Min plus 1. Well, sure. And then we are going to go, oh, messing that up. We are going to go to max. It's exclusive, so that should work. We're going to loop, and then we're going to do what? What's the next step here?
You need to start putting them into an array.
Sure. Let's call it result. Result R.
I don't think it can be I less than max because max is already exclusive.
Max is exclusive. So if it's less than, yeah, it should be less than. But if we can adjust, here's a tip for solving coding challenges. When you're struggling to solve a coding challenge, solve a simpler version of the challenge first, right? If it's asking you, for example, to filter an array by, a max num, you can find the max num first of any array, and then you can try and filter it. So try to break them down into smaller problems. Right here, if we don't get all the numbers or we're missing a few, we can kind of adjust the code as we go. So what's the next step to do here? This might not get us all the way there, but it'll get us close. So we have a result R. Now the only thing we have to do is what?
So you want to, I guess, push the resulting number to that array.
Why not? And what's the last thing we need to do?
Return result array.
I see the following quite a bit. What's wrong with this line?
You're gonna see it, but it's not actually returning anything.
Yeah, exactly. And sometimes people will put if you wrap your function call, line 10 and 11, if you wrap it in a console log, then you're going to see the result if you return something in the console. You don't have to wrap it again. That's probably one of the most common mistakes that I see. So you can return just the results are, and since you already console log the function call, you should see the return. You should see your result in the console. So we're going to return it, see how close we got. I don't think we got close. I think we got it spot on. That's the right answer.
Awesome.
Straightforward? Yes?
Only with your help.
It comes with time. All righty. I am going to pick kind of a tougher challenge for you. We're going to do my coworkers. I don't know if this will be the last one, but I want to give you something a little bit more meaty. Sound good? So I want you guys to work on this in groups. And before I cut you loose, actually, I'm going to go ahead and well, I'll pause it later. So we're going to read the instructions together, and then I'm going to cut you I'm going to split you up into groups, and I want you to solve this. So if you do this challenge correctly, you're going to see the following 5 lines, right? It's going to print out to the console the 5 lines and then true right at the end in that specific order. So the word true, it's going to return a Boolean, not the string true, but the Boolean true. So you're given an input is a nested array of colleagues. Within the nested array, there are your colleagues' titles and a characteristic of them. Write a function that console logs the colleague's name, title, their characteristics, and returns true at the end. So this coding challenge really is about indexing arrays and kind of figuring out how you can print complete sentences to the console. You might use concatenation, you might use template literals. Those are probably the two most common ways to build sentences in JavaScript. So think about that. You can even Google those keywords and something will come up. And while you work through this challenge in your group, okay? So I am going to pause. Can you guys see my replit?
Yes.
Okay, excellent. And this is the challenge that you guys were working on for the last handful of minutes. We're going to go over it as a class. What's the first thing we need to do? Anyone? I saw you guys were working. I think one group pretty much got it, and everyone else was, varying degrees of completion. But you guys had the right idea. What's the first thing we need to do? Anyone? Our input colleagues is an array. It's a nested array. It's an array of arrays, if you will. What's the first thing we're going to do with colleagues? We have to do what to it?
We're gonna have
You gotta-
to push it.
You got to break it apart.
Before we push it, before we break it apart, we need to do what? You're getting ahead of yourselves. We need to do what?
Declare it.
Not quite. It's already being passed in. We need to. How do we grab all the elements of an array? You have to what? The same thing. The one thing you pretty much always have to do in programming, you have to what? You're getting an array. You want to touch every element in the array to do something to it. You're going to have to.
You have to iterate.
Yes,
Loop
that's
through
the
it.
word I was looking for. Loop or iterate. Loop if you're not fancy, iterate if you are. So yes, we are going to loop through our array, and then we're going to do some stuff, print out some stuff to the console. Sweet. So I'm going to show you guys something that I saw a group do. Let element of colleagues. This is known as a for of loop. And this is kind of a lazy way to do a for loop if you don't need the index. If you do not need the index for anything, use for of loops. If you do need the index for some things, then do your normal for I, loop. Make sense? So here, just to show you kind of what we're getting, I'm just going to add console log element here, if that's cool with you guys. So what do you guys think this is going to print in the console right here when I run it? I'm going to console log the element on every iteration. So what am I going to see in my console on the right-hand side?
Everything.
Define everything.
You'll see all of the elements of the colleague data array, but will it print them out one at a time?
Yes. Let's
right.
see. Boom. Got 4 elements because that's how many elements are my array. And now I can handle every element individually. And I think I saw pretty much every group start with the right idea. A couple of you guys went the nested route. This kind of sometimes looks like like you would need nested loops, but it's not that complicated. It's just one loop. So my element has that line. Look at the right-hand side of the console. Every single one of those lines is one element. So what I like to do, and what I saw literally most of you guys do, was the right idea. Start declaring variables, and then you can piece together the sentence. So the first thing we're going to do is let's just get name. So let's just look at the first element. Let's look at Stacy. If I wanted to grab just her name, how would I get it from element? It has to do with indexing. So I know I have to grab something from element. What do I have to grab?
The 0th.
Yes, the 0th index is Stacy on that first element. I don't want you to look at anything else except for that first row. Stacy, IT person, super smart. That's it. Because if we can get that down, then all the rest should fall in place. Okay, so name is going to be element 0. That's going to grab me Stacy. Sweet. What's the next thing I need to grab?
The first characteristic?
Yes. Yeah, their job, right? So I'm just going to do let job. How do I grab their job?
So it's the 0th. It's the 0th index at the of the nested array. Let's see, it's
So
the
box
first
0, box 0.
Yeah, there you go. No, box 0, box 1, box 0, right?
That's it.
So
It's 1 because it's actually the second element, index 1 of the first array.
what?
And it's the 0th element because IT person is the 0th index of the first element of the first array.
Yeah, all right.
Make sense?
Can you say that last thing one more time?
Yes. Element 0 is just Stacy, but element 1 is actually IT person and super smart. That's element 1. Okay,
Yes.
so if I grab element 1, that's going to be IT person and super smart, but I don't want both. I just want IT person because that's their job. So 0.
I think I'm just getting confused. How is putting in element 1? Why does that give you? Oh, because there's the box within the box.
Yep.
Sorry.
That's it. That's how the indexing works, right? When you have boxes inside boxes, every single brackets, you're going one layer deeper. Okay, so let job element 1 of 0 is IT person. So by that same logic, I'm going to grab the quality of that person. I don't know how to spell quality element. I'm freaking out, man. All right. So the quality, someone grab me the quality. I'm trying to grab super smart.
1,
1,
1.
1.
So I am going to grab index 1. That's going to give me the second array, the nested one. And then the first element is actually super smart. So that is correct. I screwed that up. It's outside 1. Boom. 1, 1 gives me the quality. Awesome. So now I have the name. Now I have the job. Now I have the quality. The only thing left for me to do is to console log the sentence. So I'm just actually going to, I could do it all in one line, and then I could console log the sentence. So we can do that. But first we need to create our sentence. So you can do it a couple different ways, right? You can go element, you can go name. And what are the words that we're trying to figure out here? Let me look at my markdown. Stacy, so I'm going name, and then is the IT person. So I could concatenate, and this is called the string concatenation. I can go name, and that's a string, so I can concatenate it with is the, and then is the IT person, that's their job, so I can concatenate it with job, and then and is super smart, and then you can add and is, and then their quality. So You could do it that way. That's a little choppy for me, and I don't like doing that. So we're going to use template strings. Template strings start with backticks, not quotation marks, backticks. There's difference. The key right below your escape button, those are backticks. So backticks, and then they take, and this is just a syntax that eventually you'll remember, they'll take like a little money sign and the little bracket. That means, hey, pass in this variable name, and when you console log it, it will pull in that variable name to create your sentence. So this way it's a little bit easier. So Stacy is the what? IT person, do the same thing. Job, this is your job, is the, and is, what's the last thing? Well, it's her quality, she's super smart. And this is her quality, boom. And then I think there's a period at the end. This is just a cleaner syntax. This is like came out after 2015 or 2016. It's called ES6. Just a cleaner way to do it than concatenating. Concatenating has been around a really long time. This has been around less time. And it's smoother and slicker. Yes?
Could we put all of that, instead of declaring sentence with all of that, can't we just put all of that inside console.log?
Yeah, you can, sir.
Okay.
I was trying to keep it clean, but you're right. What am I doing? Boom. And it's going to print out that sentence. Yes. So if I run this, it's going to print out those 4 lines. Stacy is the IT person and is super smart. Jim is the salesperson, is outgoing, etc. Let's try it. Did we come close?
We don't have true.
We don't have true. How do we get
Yeah.
the true in there? It comes last.
No, how do I get this out of here?
Throw in a Boolean at the end. Why not? Questions about this challenge?
What was the point of the true? I thought there was something like bigger and
I have
grander.
no idea. I didn't create this challenge. I have no idea. Because why not?
If we wanted to, I guess, make this harder, maybe, like, how would you only console log like one of them at a time? Like,
One
that-
of them at a time.
yeah,
That's actually a
if you
pretty
wanted
good question.
to, yeah, if you wanted to come in here and be able to say, like, you know, my colleagues, Stacy, and just like spit out the sentence about Stacy.
Fantastic question, Hanley. You return it. What does a return do in a function?
Pushes that one out and then waits or
No.
stops.
Not quite. Well, it stops. You're getting closer. What does a return
Exit-
statement do in
exits
any
the
function? It exits the
exits-
function immediately. It exits the function immediately. This is a question that I asked on your technicals when you're the last thing you have to do to get admitted into Code Platoon. Well, now that I'm running it, is what does your function do when it hits a return statement? It exits the function immediately. Nothing else matters. Nothing else matters. None of this matters. I could type whatever. It's not going to execute. It hit the return, it's out. Yes? It's not going to hit that true either.
Yeah.
So it should have just printed Stacy. You're out.
I have a question though.
Yes, sir.
For each function, should we have a return statement?
It depends what you're doing. Most of the time, I would say you're going to need a return statement. But here, you don't necessarily need one. This is just a simple challenge just to work on syntax and basic programming fundamentals. That's why you don't have a return statement. But in like real software engineering, you're always going to have a return statement because that function is doing something and you're getting paid to build something and better return something.
If you don't, and it doesn't quit the function, can it run into something below it, like any code below it?
Say that again.
If you don't put a return at the end of your function, what keeps it from running, acting on code that's written below that function?
Right here, nothing. It's going to run until it's out of code. So it would be out of code on line 10.
Yeah, so if there was other code below it, it would act on it until you put a return in.
This if I just wrote code that wasn't inside of like a function, it would probably throw an error. JavaScript would probably throw an error.
Yeah,
Right? It's not going to run if it's not. I don't really want to get into scope.
I
But
got
the
you.
scope of a function matters, like where the code is in relation to the function. If it's outside, it doesn't matter unless you're going to pull a variable from it.
So I guess if we're done with that question,
Sure, sir.
so we put the return in there and it gives us just Stacy. So I guess I'm trying to understand what is happening when we don't have the return in there, because it like
Sure. Yeah, I can walk through it.
I
Okay,
just
so-
don't understand why it's giving us all of their names when we have specified like the specific elements, you know?
Okay,
Right?
sure.
Just the for loop.
It's the loop, yes. So this is my function. My function is called my colleagues, right? On line 26, I am invoking, I'm doing what's known as a function call on line 26. My function is my colleagues. You see how the names match on line 1 and line 26? I'm calling it and I am passing in the parameter colleague data. And all those names, Stacy, Jim, Jenny, Corey, all those are arguments, right? Those are the arguments that are going to be passed in. So they're passed in when my function is invoked, it's called, right? I'm going to go into my function. Then I'm going to hit this loop, this for of loop. It's going to loop through every element in colleagues. It's going to loop through Stacy. It's going to loop through Jim, Jenny, and Corey. And for each of those elements, it's going to grab the name, job, quality, and it's going to print that sentence for every single one of those elements. After that loop is done, there is no return. I'm going to continue outside that curly brace on line 8. I'm going to hit that console log true. Then I'm going to stop. I'm out of code.
So I guess the next question, if you wanted to just say like Jim, like I want to just console log the line about Jim.
Sure. You're asking a lot of really good questions, bud. I can put a conditional in there. If sure. So I already have his name, right? I have all their names. So if name equaled, Jim, I want you to do this. If his name's not Jim, I want you to do nothing. Sorry, I'm like
Perfect.
I kind of froze on my Mac shortcuts. Sorry. So what this is going to do is like if the name is Jim, I'm going to go ahead and print out that sentence. If it's not Jim, then it's not going to do anything. And then I'm going to go Jim and then true.
Awesome. And then so how colleague data is at the very bottom of this is that hoisting? Is that what we're seeing where it's like pushing it up above because it's outside of the function, right? Or I guess colleague data is like global at this point, right?
Variable declarations get hoisted to the top. You are correct. If you've already read about that, that is right. So they're executed first and then the functions. Especially something like line 1, because it's an arrow function and is not being invoked until line 21. So the way that this script is read is colleague data is assigned to that array first, then the function runs. If you don't know about hoisting, that's okay. It's really not that important right now. Right now, you're just your programming fundamentals. You can go into the bootcamp not knowing anything about hoisting, you're going to be just fine. As long as your Python and your JavaScript is strong. Hoisting and all that stuff is more of an advanced concept, I would say. Don't get discouraged. Questions? I did a for of loop. for of loop here, but if I did just a normal for loop and I just wanted to print the first two, I could just literally run it until the count was 2 or run it until the count was 3 and then just print the first 3. Or if I only wanted the last 2, I could start the count at 2 and then just print the last 2, or omit the first 2 and then print everything after that. Right. So if I need an index, I do a normal for loop, but this one I didn't really need an index for anything, so I did a for of loop, shorter. All right, guys, I'm actually going to turn off the recording now because this is the end of lesson 6, but I'm going to stay on the line just to address you and then answer any more questions. I just got to make sure I don't mess up the recording. Just give me 1 second. You can tell I'm not used to doing this. I'm going to stop recording now.